Call the roll.
Andrews,
Here.
Kasdorf,
Here.
Morin,
Here.
Glibowitz.
Here.
Is there any desiring to be heard? None. Consideration of the minutes, September 2nd of 2025.
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on, any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 On opposition, say nay. Motion passes. Public hearing. Public hearing for ordinance 25-11, an ordinance to amend section 54-601 of the Village of Butler Code of Ordinances related to fences. I will open that at 5:16. Is there anyone that wants to speak to that? None.
Even us?
Well, that comes up under new business then. This is just a public hearing.
I'll be quiet then.
It's closed at 5:16 with no speakers. Second item is a public hearing for ordinance 25-16, an ordinance to amend section 54-358 of the Village of Butler Code of Ordinances related to industrial conditional uses. Is there anyone that wants to speak to that? None. Open and closed at 5:17. New business. Discussion and possible action of a certified survey map for Fetting Industries to combine Butler tax keys BV 1009001 with an address of 12701 West Hampton Avenue, BV 1009006, and BV 1009007.
Yes, so Mr. Fettig is here. Currently, the old Chase Bank property and now his Fettig Industries building. He currently owns the building itself, and then part of the parking lot is split up between two separate parcels. In reality, we would want to definitely clean those up, and that's why we are doing the certified survey map now. Because right now they have accessory uses without a principal use, so that's in violation of the zoning code. And we just want to, again, kind of combine all of that into one, since they are owned by the same person and they are for the same use. So we are going to be having Mr. Fettig here today if you have any questions. But besides that, passing it today would just send it on to the village board and then on to the county from there.
So by combining that, that doesn't really change anything other than it just cleans up the tax rolls?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions of the board? Is there a recommendation to the village board?
Make a motion to, approve.
Make a
Combining the
positive
tax.
recommendation to the village board for the approval of the certified survey map.
Approve it to send it on to the village board to combine the separate tax parcels into one.
I'll second that. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All in opposition, say nay. Motion passes. Item B, discussion and possible action on ordinance 25-11, an ordinance to amend section 54-601 of the Village of Butler Code of Ordinances related to fences. We had a public hearing and there were no speakers.
Is he trying to get in?
Was that Bill? Okay. All right. So Ben, did you want to talk to item B?
I can talk a little bit to that. So item B, the fence ordinance, the intent is that we kind of went in, we updated language, we kind of updated a few sections, both to add some clarity and to kind of spell out a few things. This is both based on what our peer communities are doing in their ordinance, as well as to kind of address a few things that we've encountered over the past year as permits have come in. So the intent behind these changes is to make the code more straightforward, is to make the code easier to read, whether it's for our permit tech, but as well as for the applicants so that they can kind of read the code and more easily say, hey, this is how I can build my fence.
We're trying to call Bill.
To that section, to that point, we've added a lot more definitions to kind of clarify a few things. we've kind of made the formatting a little bit more consistent, as well as adding some additional clarification, especially when it came to kind of when fences would be prohibited and when enforcement action can be taken. Pending any of your questions.
Yeah. I read one of the things, whether I'm misreading, but one of them had a temporary construction fence of a
Yes.
limit of 45 days.
Yes.
That seems awful short.
So the intent behind those is to just have a clear control over that. That time could be extended based on when that is actually needed.
Now,
But
is
the
that,
intent is not to have a temporary fence with a 6-month approval time. Rather, it's either tied to a project date that we can hold it to, and then it would expire shortly after that time.
now, did it also read that it can only be re-upped once? The 45 days?
I believe so, unless they need to reapply at that point.
Okay. I'm just been on a lot of construction sites and 45 days is awful quick.
Hold that thought. We had the wrong number for Bill.
That one.
Hey, Charlene, it's Paul. Is Bill in the background? Okay, sorry about that. We had a wrong phone number. We're talking about on the plan commission, we're talking about fences.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. So this really doesn't change, if I heard everything correctly. It just is updating the wording in the codes, kind of what we've been doing in the past on the other ordinances.
I do want to highlight that it does kind of add some additional clarification on when fences would be prohibited and when they can be forced to be essentially deemed dilapidated. So when, let's say, 50% of a fence is deemed dilapidated, then we can go in and say, hey, you need a new fence permit. Or when a fence is kind of leaning, it adds some additional clarification. That's towards the end of the ordinance, near the last 2 sections that specifically deal with that.
And a lot of the changes that we are making are in response to either issues that we've run into with fence permits that have come through already, questions from residents and contractors, or again, just trying to be forth, having a sight towards the future and trying to avoid any type of issues with that. And Mr. Endries, with regards to the 45 days, and then the one renewal, if the board wants to recommend any type of change to the village board, you can make a motion to recommend that change, to increase the time period if you would like. And then if the plan commission agrees, it would get sent on to the village board with that recommendation to amend the ordinance to increase those number of days.
Wouldn't it make more sense to have temporary fences as a permit only? Is that something that we would consider changing?
In the sense that it just requires is the question about having a fee or not, or is the question about just saying, hey, just
You
submit
want
a
a
temporary
temporary
fence
fence.
without a time, any type of time?
I guess that would kind of clear up a lot of things, especially with construction sites, or maybe just anything in general.
Yeah.
If you wanted a temporary fence, maybe just make it be applied for rather than
That could be, you can make the amendment to change that to a year, and then that would expire with that permit, or make any change to strip the time requirement out of it entirely.
And then at that point, I would just say that it wouldn't be any type of fence. If there's no expiration, then it's not a temporary fence. I guess that's my whole thing. If there's not an expiration period. So if we're going to completely strip it out, then it would just basically be, you pull a fence permit for both temporary and regular. Because again, you kind of know what I'm saying, that
Yeah.
it's not really temporary if you don't have an end date, because then somebody can just have their temporary fence up and it'll just be there for an indefinite amount of time, and there's no recourse that we can have.
Okay.
Okay.
Bill, did you have any questions about the fence language on item B?
Hang on a minute, I just got a phone call coming in. All right, now, the only question I had on the fencing and all is, why is it, the front yard, why is the front yard not, being able to get fenced in?
So historically, the village has not allowed front yard fences. There is the stripping of the language when it comes to side lots, or I should say corner lots in the R2 residential district, mainly because if you read how it was worded, is that it cannot extend beyond the front building face line.
Yeah, right, I saw that.
So if it's not extending past the front building face line, then it's not a front yard fence, if that makes
All right.
sense, because it's not going into the front yard. So we were stripping that out just because it seemed, it didn't, to me, it didn't make sense, because if it can't go again past the front yard face line, then you can't have a front yard fence because it can't extend past the building.
You answered my question.
Okay, if there's one existing, are you gonna make them take it down?
No, it's just going to be it's going to be a legal non-conforming. So if something were to happen to the fence where all of a sudden a massive storm blew through and it knocked the fence completely over, then there would be some timeline for them to fix it, I believe.
So they would have 1 year so they would, so if somebody has a fence that is anyway encumbered by this ordinance, it does have a legal status. If the fence were to be damaged, 51% of that fence in the front yard were to be damaged, they would have 1 year to essentially restore that fence as is. They can still maintain the fence where it is. So there's no time limit. There's no real mechanism other than either they take it down or some other force takes it down, and then no action is taken within one 365-day period to restore that fence.
And after the year, it can't be put back up
Correct.
past the house, the front of the house.
Yeah, correct.
It looks like you're thinking.
No.
Oh. Okay. I just have both sides of my house. I have a fence going past my front.
You'd be grandfathered in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there would be nothing that we would be doing with that.
Is there a motion or any additional questions?
With that, then I'll make a motion to accept the ordinance 2511 as written.
I'll second that. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
On opposition, say nay. Motion passes. New business item C, discussion and possible action on ordinance 25-16, an ordinance to amend section 54-358 of the Village of Butler Code of Ordinances related to industrial conditional uses.
So this comes as a recommendation from MMSD, in part as we've been, not recently, but in the past, earlier this year, we were dealing with a centralized waste disposal center up on Custer Avenue. There was complaints about smells and whatnot coming from the building. It seems like they've kind of gotten that figured out now, because I haven't heard anything additional since then. However, basically MMSD said if that business were to close up, we could, VLS has been very, very proactive and very responsive to the village. If they were to close up, move, and another building became open for this type of use, there's no real recourse that the village has to, regulate certain items that have been less than savory there. So we're trying to add this use as a conditional use, that if, again, they were to move, another business moved in to try to do the same thing, or an additional business would come in and try to do the same thing, we could put in a legally binding conditional use on there where we could mandate that they have certain ventilation, they have certain disposal methods, that they do certain things before they would be able to operate. Because right now, that's not the case. It's anybody can just apply for an occupancy permit. That's a permitted use. and they can go off and do what they want. This would put more legal restrictions on it, and would require them to meet certain standards that the village would be able to set.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now that building can operate, that business can operate, but a lot of their stuff is on the discharge
Correct.
for MMSD, but we don't have anything else about the smells and things coming from the business, like controls over that. So-
Correct. Yeah, there's, people, some of the complaints have been about the garage doors when they're open. Sometimes the smells come out and they like waft down to the park, or they waft down, down Custer Avenue. So there could be something again with ventilation or, whatever. Again, I'm not an engineer when it comes to that, but we would be able to consult who we would need to consult to put that into a conditional use permit, that they would be required to get that.
Well, to give you a heads up, there's another company that moved on to 124th Street, basically right across from Ruby Avenue, and they are doing the same thing. And my house back in there on Ruby, we smell that same smell that the people down on the other end of Butler were smelling. So that's a new company, but it's in Wauwatosa.
Yeah. So that, again, kind of my point that there could be other businesses that move in and try to do the same thing, that we would want to try to regulate that as much as we can.
So right now we have no control over it.
When it comes to an occupancy zoning aspect, no. MMSD has their specific regulations, but those, again, they don't really have regulations over smells.
Right.
That's a village thing that we would have to then deem it a noxious odor, and trying to determine what an noxious odor is, documenting that's somewhat difficult.
Okay. So this just adds to our language, to our existing code.
Correct.
Cleans it up a little bit. Okay, is there a motion? I'll make a motion to approve ordinance, the language change on ordinance 25-16 as stated.
I will second that.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in opposition, say nay. Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in opposition, say nay. Motion passes, adjourned at 5:34. Thank you.